This is a brief tutorial about layers and grouping in the Adobe products, most specifically in this case Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe InDesign follows much of the same reasoning. Now, when you're using Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign, you want to keep things organized, especially when you're creating big projects. And well, it's good to be able to move different shapes around. Sometimes you want to be able to move large amounts of shapes without having to figure out how you're going to select them all without catching everything else. And that's where layers come in. So this is the layers panel button. It looks like this. If you don't have this on your side, you can go to Window and go down to Layers, and that'll bring up this panel. Now, in here, I have a few different layers already set up. If I wanted to click on just these three shapes without the star being selected, all I would have to do is click on this circle over here, and this will target these shapes. And you'll notice that I'm able to move them without actually touching the star. This is nice because it makes it so that way if I were to try and select them this way, I would select the star as well. Now, how you create a new layer is by clicking this little button down here that looks a little bit like a post-it note, and you click on that and it will add a layer. Now, the order that the layers are in actually does matter. Basically, the higher on the list that the layer is, the more forward it will be in the picture. And so, in this case, I have the star, which is in the very front because it's on the very top of the list. And if I move it underneath the shapes layer, it will disappear because it's hidden behind the shapes. And so you can organize your layers according to how you want those to be seen. You can name layers by double-clicking on the name, and in this case I'd name it star. And the key thing about layers is the fact that I can still move objects around without actually, but they're still grouped together inside of their layer. Another thing about layers is that you can lock layers. So if I wanted to leave these shapes where they were, I could lock the layers, and I'm not able to influence those at all until I hit the lock button again. And now I'm able to click any of them I want. You can also change the visibility of layers. This eye icon, if you click on it, it hides the layer and everything inside of the layer when you click on it, and leaves the other layers behind. And that's useful if you have a lot of different parts and you're only focusing on one part at a time. Plus it helps your computer because anything not visible doesn't have to be processed. Now there's a difference between layers and groups. So layers, as we established, you're able to move in and of themselves, but you can also select them all as a group. The other form is groups, where in this case, this is a magic 8-ball, and this, just to review, the layers on here, I put them on backwards. And this is a nice time to mention that if you want to change the layers, you can either drag them, or you can also select what you want to click on, and then by the letter P on your keyboard, there's two brackets. And if you hold down Control and hit that left bracket, it will move your object that you have selected back one or down one on the layer list. And if I do that again, that'll put that completely behind everything. Now, I want to move this 8 upward so it looks actually like a magic 8 ball. So I'm going to select that, and now I'll hit Control and the right bracket that's by the P, and that will move it up the list. Now, you can individually select things by clicking on here on the Layers panel. A big thing about groups is they're useful if you want things to stay the way they are. So how you make a group is you select everything. I just clicked and dragged with my black arrow tool. And going up here, I'm going to go to Object and Group. Now, the important thing about groups is that when you click on one thing, you click on all of the things. That's why it's good for keeping things stable. So it makes things faster that way. But let's say I wanted to move the 8 or the white circle. I could, like I mentioned before, select it like this, where I click on the circle inside of the group. You can also use the direct selection tool or the white arrow tool. And the white arrow tool ignores groups, and so you can click on things independently of each other inside of groups. You can also, if you're using the black arrow tool or selection tool, you can double click and that'll take you into isolation mode. And when you double click on a specific piece of the group, it'll focus on that. So right now I'm focused only on the white circle. And as soon as I want to get out of isolation mode, I double click off of the shape. And so, other than the fact that you can build sub-layers that are layers inside of layers, that is a basic introduction into using layers and grouping in the Adobe products. I hope this helps you as you organize your projects, that you will be able to use it effectively.